Welcome all to the hunt, and today we shall be hunting the Sapphire Emperor himself, the Red Dragon, SafiJiiva. Taking on the Sapphire Emperor himself is quite a measurable task that if you are not prepared, you are going to die. You need to be fully aware of where you're going and what's your plan going in, because this thing will tear you to shreds. Luckily, I am slightly prepared, meaning I do have a shot. My main recommendation when finding SafiJiiva is having poison bombs. That's free 2,000 damage it can do for absolutely free, meaning it can get save damage without a hitch. Let's just do a restart on that one. So, again, poison bombs are an incredible way of dealing free damage. 2k is pretty much an incredible amount that you can get without a hitch, so... Tenderizing the body might work, although you do have to be... Oh my god! Like I said, tenderizing the body will allow you... You big bitch, stop it! It just keeps going, stop! He's just Goomba stomping me! So, I don't really have enough footage to cover the entirety of SafiJiiva Siege, so we'll have to cheat. Let's start out by saying straight up, SafiJiiva is amazing, but the simple reason and the fact that I'm cheating for this specific episode, just like I did Kulthra prior to this yesterday, is because it's impossible to see the whole fight of SafiJiiva, or at least for me, it's impossible to do it within an hour restraint and being able to fully show you what the siege is and truly appreciating the monster design. All you need to know is that I failed the challenge, and from there, since I want to talk about SafiJiiva because I actually like the monster, unlike Golrathian, let's make it a second exception, so to say, and take a little bit of time to appreciate Fatalis and see how good of bloody carry I am for a siege. Oh my god, I keep taking aggro during this entire hunt. So, let's quickly talk over the mechanics of SafiJiiva, how they work, and how I absolutely adore them. It was meant to be a siege fight for a very simple reason. You absolutely need to tenderize the body parts of the SafiJiiva and break them in order to gain any advantage in this fight. And the fact of the matter is, solo tenderizing is a gamble. You either get an attack that allows you to get a tenderizing in, or you don't. And since SafiJiiva is reliant on the clutch claw mechanic, it makes this fight significantly harder because of so. You have to do it. And that goes into the math that we won't go as of now, because it's a lot. Trust me, it's a lot. But essentially, clutch clawing away is mandatory all the way until roughly about 70% through the hunt, which in a SafiJiiva siege, meaning that you gotta deal about something in the ballpark of 50,000 damage solo, which is insane, which is why I'm doing it in a 4-quadrant. As you see, the SafiJiiva health pool is actually quite low. It's hovering around 20,000 to 25,000, but you need to deplete that pool of health significantly fast since you only have a time limit of 20 minutes to do so. And not only that, whenever the SafiJiiva passes through a certain threshold of health, it will recover that health by absorbing the energy within the area. It's a threshold, so like I think it's when it goes below 10,000 HP, it needs to heal itself for an additional 5,000 or something along these lines. Please correct me if I am wrong. But it is essentially how SafiJiiva works, and you need to deplete the energy of every level you fight this thing on. So, as you just saw, we fought him in the first area of the secluded valley. Once you deplete all the energy that he can potentially heal himself with, you'll drop into the second level of the secluded valley, where you also need to deplete all of the energy supply by him draining the area dry, and then going to the third level and finishing it then. So, that is how the fight is constructed. It's really, really cool. I believe it's the only monster in Iceborne specifically that that specifically heals its HP bar threshold in order to essentially sustain itself in the fight, while still making somewhat challenging. I love this idea for a concept, and just the siege in general doesn't feel oppressive of an MMO mechanic, despite being very, very similar to what it is. So that's my general viewpoint about the siege and how it's done. Now, the other item mechanic that you will see in most SafiJiiva sieges, or if you're fighting with group and multiplayer, is that this thing will take aggro just like the behemoth did back all the way in base world. However, how the aggro works here is slightly different, meaning that you have more ability to potentially have a more successful hunt. And I love the conceptual idea behind the aggro mechanic, but we'll come to that when we come to that. The player that deals the most amount of DPS, so the player, whenever you enter the second level, the secluded valley, SafiJiiva will begin a counter, and that counter will fill up until one person fills the DPS quota. If a certain person is able to deal a certain amount of damage in a very limited time, compared to all of the other ones, SafiJiiva will begin to get aggro on that person. It will begin to just attach himself, be an obsessed girlfriend over that person specifically. So, unlike the behemoth, where you can just have a tank punch the face, and then the longsword player can just aim all of their shots at the hind legs and have a safe location to go in, no matter where you're summoning the SafiJiiva, you will have to deal damage somehow, and that damage is counted as universal. So usually play with a whole lot of DPS, so we're talking bows, we're talking heavy bowguns, we're talking dual blades, we're talking longsword players. They usually have to deal with a lot more heat, if only for the fact that these usually DPS player now have to sustain themselves with the full aggro of the monster in front of them, which is a lot more terrifying. If you're a blunt weapon, it's usually lesser so, if only because for the fact that you like to be in the face of monsters to begin with. But especially for sever, a sever damage weapon, sorry, not a sever, a cutting damage weapon, it's a lot more difficult and a lot more pressing. I love this idea and how it's done, because it essentially puts more pressure on a DPS weapon to sustain himself and allow the rest of the team to do damage, even though their DPS is lacking. So it essentially nullifies hard carrying. However, there is a workaround this. If SafiJiiva is unenraged, as you can see with the eye on the map, if it's not red and it's yellow, you have the ability to flinch shot him. If you have stones, if you have any kind of slinger ammo in your pouch, you can grab onto the head if the SafiJiiva is not aggro to you but another player, and shoot at him in order to take the pressure off the DPS player, so you can get back into hard carry. But by the time it gets unenraged, the person taking on the pressure have already sustained the pressure for nearly 1 to 2 minutes straight. So it's just a fantastic mechanic to do so. And it's done wonderfully as an MMO mechanic. And, of course, you also have the sustain check. Sapphire of the Emperor in its full glory. What an incredible attack, done wonderfully throughout this entire hunt. Less so in the third level, but I think in the second stage takes a lot more of oppressive look to it, let's say. And I think it's so done wonderfully. It's done with great care to show the power, the sound drawing it out. It's done wonderful. Now, the main reason why I believe that SafiJiiva taking on solo is incredibly hard is for the fact that, first of all, like I said before, you need to tenderize it unless you have purple sharpness, but there's not a whole lot of weapon with purple sharpness that can hit him for long enough in order for you to have time to re-sharpen unless you have smoke bombs and wetfish scales. Plus, with that matter. So it's just hard to sharpen to begin with, and tenderizing is super hard. The other reason why SafiJiiva in specifics is really hard to take on solo is only for the fact that he has so many aerial moves that it's essentially a dare to go about it. And he's got a few combo moves as well. So for example, if you go about the SafiJiiva hitting, say, the left forelegs, the left foreleg, what'll happen is that on this first hit, he's gonna try to swipe you from up front all the way back. While if he tries to do a combination attack and wants to go for another move with its left foreleg, say for example again, then it will do a different type of attack. And anticipating the move, meaning that you got to be really careful about your positioning, as well having multiple kind of sweeping beam, just as you're seeing now, having extremely dangerous wide-ass Xboxes. He loves to beam, and he loves to stay in place, and just, you have to dance around it. And it's quite beautiful. And if you're a Dual Blades player like me, I figured that the best combo you can potentially do against a SafiJiiva is doing a full triangle combo on him in demon mode, and then slingshot dodging him to the other foreleg, and then doing a full demon mode triangle combo on his other forelegs, and then slingshot him back and forth. That is generally the best way to both evade the attack and make sure that you have a good amount of sustained damage during this fight. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it is by far one of the most consistent way of dealing damage. With that said, you still need to have time to tenderize, and if you don't have mentals or booster, this fight becomes a lot more tricky because of so. But even then, I'd say that taking on SafiJiiva alone is significantly harder, if only because this fight was designed around the clutch claw, how it's deal with it, how many of the moves have AoE. There's only one move in his entire arsenal that I don't like, is when he slams down both of his forelegs, crusting them into the ground as he radiates circling power of dragon energy that just explodes in a ring-like formation. That is the most dumbass move that he has, because trying to understand the lingering hitboxes of the dragon energy, as well as just the actual hitboxes of the pulsing dragon energy, is really hard to anticipate, and it's not made extremely clear. It's the only move in the entire SafiJiiva hunt that I feel like I don't like. The meteor down there, the only reason I got hit is because I didn't look at the red circle that announced that the rock was gonna drop on me. There's so many things in the hunt that I absolutely love as to how they're done. If it wasn't for the AoE slam dunk move where he crushed his fist into the ground pulsing out dragon energy, I'd say that SafiJiiva would be the best designed multiplayer fight in the whole game. Unfortunately, he's not, if only because of that one move, because he does have an intention to pull that out quite a few times. Every other AoE move, just like this one that you're seeing right now, is both awesome looking, dangerous, but it's not bullshit just like that one. If he's encrusted and has a part that is tenderized, the SafiJiiva will have his AI, if he wants to untenderize his body part and actually harden him back, instead of just waiting for the tenderizer to go off, he will encrust his legs, his limbs into the ground, pulsing dragon energy and slowly pulling him out as he hardens him back. So there's a lot of things to consider here when in SafiJiiva Siege. And one of the main things that you have to juggle is tenderizing, and not just because of the 90 seconds timer, even though there's a really nice thing about the tenderizing in this fight specifically, is that if you're carrying a light weapon, you don't have to tenderize twice in order to actually have the part weaken to deal damage. You only have to do it once. And I don't know why it's not like that for every single bloody weapon and fight in this entire video game, but the fact that it's here in SafiJiiva is really good because it makes the juggling of the tenderizing part really much significantly easier, and thus making the fight significantly better because of so. Oh my god, if light weapon had to tenderize twice within this fight in particular, it'd be annoying as hell. So juggling all of these tenderizer points is extremely important during the fight, and knowing how and when to do so and how to avoid the AoE slam best you can is incredibly important. Once you get down to the third level of the Secluded Valley, SafiJiiva will enter the super critical state. During this super critical state, it becomes a lot more weakened and is the only time where you don't actively need to tenderize in order to do good damage. It is the only point in time, but he does become a lot more dangerous, leaving patches of fire on the ground as he does most sweeping beam attacks, or even just walking about and doing his most fist attack, meaning that you can get lingering damage on you at any point of time in the fight. So although you have a lot more DPS, it's at a high risk, high reward scenario. And the lore idea and concept for the Safi is also extremely fun to go and have a look at. His grab move is devastating if your teammate doesn't compensate for that. If you're playing solo and he grabs you and do this little beast of a move, you are 99.99% of the time dead. As you say right there, if you're ever in a siege fight, please, please, please go and tell your team that you like him, you appreciate their work, you appreciate their efforts for keeping you alive, because that has happened so many times when SafiJiiva came out, it became a little bit ridiculous. But I love it nonetheless. I love the conceptual idea again of the SafiJiiva. It looks like an actual fearsome dragon. It's the only dragon in the game that I feel like I'm okay with. There's other conceptual design that we'll see later on in later DLC monsters, very near actually. The Black Dragon specifically, that I'm a little bit okay with, but Safi is the only one that I feel deserves the look and title of the Red Dragon. It's just an overbearing, absolutely devastating monster. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. We have but very little time left, so let's take a look at the math, because I'm not gonna spend 15 minutes on that one, eh? So, the reason why I'm a little bit terrified to go a little bit too deep into this one is because here's the math. That's the longest charts we've seen yet. I think we can all agree on that. You see, the problem with this page in particular is because that's only the first one. SafiJiiva has so long of an actual hit zone value list that he has 2 pages of hit zone values to go over. So, let's quickly go over them. Then again, just like I told you, you need to pretty much terrorize any body part in order to do any kind of damage whatsoever on him at any point in time. The head tip 24, neck 25, body 18, back 45, which if you're an instant glaive user, that's your spot, bro. The chest 20, forelegs and 4 feet at 34 apiece. The hind leg at 18 and the hind feet at 18 apiece. The wings at 20, wingtip at 20, the webbing at 20, the tail at 21, the butt, the specific butt region at 18. When the head are broken, all their values change, and as you see, there's also the same thing when he's in super critical state. And as you can see, the differences in between, let's say the head at 24, the head in super critical state at 63, the head at super critical state and also broken at 68. So you see how this fight goes. Super critical state is the time you deal damage to him and you don't have to care about tenderizing, and it's important for you to know this because it just makes you a better fight machine against this. Get those things out of here. We don't want to see more math, and we want to talk about the rewards. Unfortunately, I don't have much time, so I'll have to speed through this. How the siege work is that you actively need to break parts in order to gain level in your siege to be able to have higher level rewards at the end, whether it's Dracolite or weaponry. You can get both of them. You get both of them actually at the end of the fight, but the faster you clear the SafiJiiva, the higher reward levels, and the more blocks you break during the SafiJiiva siege, the more rewards level you get. You get a significant amount of points just from killing the beast, but by the time you kill the beast, you sure as hell gonna destroy a couple of parts along the way. If you are using a weapon type, dual blades, SNS, longsword, charge blade, no matter what, if you finish a siege with that weapon, you are guaranteed to have a drop of that weapon within the multitude of lists of weapons that you can choose from at the end of the siege. You can take around 3 to 4 weapons per successful siege, but you are always guaranteed to have a drop with the weapon that you slay the beast with. With that said, every drop is RNG from there on, but what's very powerful about the SafiJiiva weapons to begin with is that they were meta for the longest time before Fatalis. It took nearly a year of SafiJiiva weapons before we got rid of them for Fatalis gear, above multiple DLCs of plays. The armor was amazing, the weapons were amazing, and the fact of the matter is, why they were so good is because SafiJiiva gear is the ultimate flexibility picks. Even with Fatalis out, SafiJiiva still has very niche builds and very viable builds too with its armor, where you can build in with a Fatalis weapon to deal significant amount of damage and still speedrun fantastically with it too. So as much as SafiJiiva got owned by Fatalis in the meta, SafiJiiva weapons are ultimately the best thing you want to move on and go for if you're going to go on later fights in Iceborne or just the rest of your playtime with World anyway. It's the most amount of fun. This set behind it was done wonderfully. The look was absolutely gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous. The intensity of the skills behind it, the slots, the conceptual idea of you attacking, but as you attack you lose HP, but if you land hits you can recover that HP, similar to the lore of the Safi as he takes and seeps the energy of everything around it, was so wonderfully done. SafiJiiva is a phenomenal monster. His theme is unbelievably good, although I will say listening to it on repeat for 9 hours at a time, grinded Safi was kind of annoying, but outside of that, Safi was an unbelievable monster, and I think everyone that is playing Iceborne should fight it without a shadow of a doubt. That is the hunt. That is the monster. We'll see you all for another hunt